watching CBS News' continuing coverage of Showdown in the Gulf. From CBS News headquarters in New York, here are Charles Osgood and Susan Spencer.
Here are the headlines at this hour. 2 more American planes have been shot down. Israel debates a response to an Iraqi missile attack. Allied bombs continue to fall on Iraq. Jordan's forces go on high alert. This morning it is reported that 2 more U.S. warplanes have been shot down as the Persian Gulf conflict goes on. They are said to be, this time, an Air Force F-15E Eagle and a Navy A-6 Intruder. Both those planes carry 2-man crews, but their fate is not known as of this hour. Iraqi missiles slammed into Israeli coastal areas, causing some damage and at least 10 injuries. Tel Aviv was among the cities hit when at least 8 Scud missiles found their mark. They were conventional weapons. They were not armed with chemical warheads, as was feared. And now the Israeli cabinet is locked in a debate over whether to respond, and if so, how. From the Gulf allies, words of caution.
From a military point of view, the attack on Tel Aviv really didn't mean very much. It was an attack against civilians. Psychologically, this was traumatic. This is the first time since 1967 that Israel's airspace has been violated.
Israel's neighbor, Jordan, has put its troops on their highest alert since the 1967 war. Jordanian leaders say they fear a severe Israeli response to the missile attack. U.S. forces have launched their own response to the attack on Israel, striking hard at suspected Iraqi missile sites. And the airstrikes continue against other Iraqi targets as well. The Iraqis claim that they have shot down 60 Allied planes, but the Allies say they have lost 8, with the latest report of 2 more American jets down. And the Defense Department has identified the first American casualty. Navy Lieutenant Commander Michael Spiker is officially listed by the Pentagon as missing after his F-18 fighter bomber was shot down.
Charlie, we have a little bit more information from producer Lucy Spiegel at our bureau in Riyadh about these planes. She says that the Joint Information Bureau there in Riyadh confirms that 2 planes are down, 2 more planes are down. One an Air Force F-15E Strike Eagle, which I believe we said, that has a dual role as a bomber and a fighter. The second is a Navy A-6 Intruder. Each of those planes has 2 crew members. Mark Phillips is standing by at the Pentagon. Hopefully, Mark, can you provide us with any more details?
I can provide you a little bit more detail, Susan. We believe here that the Navy A-6 Intruder, which has now been officially listed as down, is the second American plane casualty to which we've been referring right through this night, but about which we could not provide further detail earlier. Part of the reason for not being able to provide that detail was because this A-6 is believed to be off the carrier Saratoga, and the Navy was mounting an air search and rescue operation to try to find the 2-man crew from that plane. And it was thought prudent not to advertise that fact up until now. But it does appear as if 2 men are now lost on that flight, and 2 men also in the F-15 Eagle, which would bring the U.S. air casualty figure to 5, I believe, the single pilot you just named, plus these 4 more. Also, there's some other potentially sad news, and that is that an F-18 Hornet is missing. There's no further information on that at this time. Susan?
Is there any concentration to this? Are these planes being shot down, in other words, my question, in a specific area, in other words? Are we getting into trouble in one spot, or is this wherever they're going, or do we have that information?
We just don't. I wish I could supply that answer to you, but I can't. The Pentagon is being very tight-lipped for obvious security reasons as to just exactly where its various sorties are heading, and of course are not telling us just exactly where these planes are being shot down as well. There may be some indication in the fact that if there was a sea rescue attempted for the A-6, then it may have been shot down, returning perhaps out of from Kuwait, heading back for the carrier Saratoga, but that's, I'm afraid to say, pure speculation at this point.
And do you have any sense, any further indication of any ground movements?
We don't. There's been a lot of discussion here as well through the night about what we've been reporting as troop movements along the highway up to the Kuwaiti-Saudi frontier. The comments being made here by Pentagon officials is that this would be a normal staging maneuver of bringing troops up to staging points for possible movement forward. but that the battle plan from the beginning has been commented on by many people, and was always thought to require days, if not weeks, of advance bombardment before any massive troop movement forward. And so an imminent attack, frontal attack by U.S. and other allied forces is not thought likely at this time, but of course nobody's making their war plans public ahead of time.
So when you bring this up at the Pentagon, you are again reminded that in fact it was to take a long time. There's not a telling and stony silence on this subject.
No, the official view here has always been that, and expressed by Defense Secretary Cheney and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Colin Powell, that this was not going to be a two-day wonder, that this was a battle that could well go into at least the medium, if not the long haul, and that no miracles ought to be expected within the first 48 hours of this conflict. But there has been a lot of discussion here as well as to whether or not the fact that the U.S. is now under some considerable pressure to go into the western Iraqi desert in search of these mobile Scud missile launchers, which have caused so much grief over the past 12 hours or so, as to whether that will distort the general battle plan or not. I think we're coming across the first of the old expression, the first proof of the old expression that no battle plan ever survives contact with the enemy. Well, the enemy has now reacted, and things are having to be adjusted accordingly.
And when does the Pentagon brief you again officially?
We understand that at 7 o'clock our time, which I think is 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Riyadh, that General Schwarzkopf will brief there on just what the extent of the American raids have been and other Allied raids have been over the past 24-hour period, and perhaps give us some more indication as to just what the success rate has been in terms of hitting the targets that are thought to be so crucial.
Mark Phillips at the Pentagon. Thank you very much. Charlie?
It's about 7 minutes after 5 there in Washington, and let's check in at the White House to see what is stirring. Linda Tyra on duty there. Good morning, Linda.
Good morning, Charlie. Just about this same time, 24 hours ago, the president was up and about, shuttling between the Oval Office and the Situation Room. His schedule for today calls for the most immediate items on his schedule are an intelligence and a national security briefing. The president, before retiring last night in the family quarters, had issued through his press secretary, Marlin Fitzwater, a statement expressing his outrage and condemnation of the Iraqi missile attack on Israel. And Secretary of State James Baker was at the White House, from where he telephoned the Israeli Prime Minister and tried to assure him that the United States and its Gulf coalition partners would themselves conduct the military strikes against these Scud missile launchers. Whether or not we will hear anytime soon from the Israeli cabinet and the outcome of that, we might hear some response from the White House at that time. The president later today is also expected to receive a Pentagon briefing at which he will be given the full details of the latest so far in the Gulf conflict. Obviously, the night had been consumed with the attack on Israel and how to respond to that, and mostly on how to keep the coalition together, how to keep Israel from launching a strike itself against Iraq. Charlie?
Well, I guess it's important for all of us to get some sleep, but it's also important for the president to get some sleep. When he retires for the night, as he did last night, do they wake him up just to let him know that from time to time what things have gone on, or do they just sort of hold stuff for him in the morning and let him know when he wakes up?
Well, as far as his schedule, he's normally an early riser, getting up probably way before a lot of Americans do. Yesterday, he reportedly was up around 4:30 in the morning, so he may already be up at this point. Obviously, if any major developments ever do erupt, he usually is awakened in the middle of the night. But we have been told that he will be receiving his regular briefings, and will try to continue with those briefings. He has no other items on his schedule other than meeting with his top advisors.
Thank you, Linda. Linda Tyra reporting from the White House.
Charlie, we have some new pictures. Let's take a look at pictures of the destruction in Haifa, Israel, that came as a result of that Iraqi Scud attack. As you can see, there's a lot of property damage. Remarkably, no one killed. Many minor injuries, but nobody killed. The Israelis, of course, had expected this as much as you can expect something like this, as much as you can bring yourself to actually prepare for it. They certainly had. Everyone had chemical masks. We're told that, as far as anybody knows, compliance with all that was very good. There was a very moving account on the Associated Press of one family going down into its sealed room when they had the warning that something might be happening. And of course the fear is, first of all, that the next strike, should there be one, might include chemical weapons, which this did not. And secondly, that there might be another strike tonight.
So the Israelis cannot relax at all now, feeling that Saddam Hussein has taken his best shot here. There is a concern that there might be another attack, and it might, as you say, Susan, have chemical warheads. You actually prepare yourself differently for one or the other. The people had been instructed to go into upper quarters rather than down into basement shelters because the gas tends to go down. And so they were prepared for chemical attack this time and got a ballistic attack, got a explosive attack instead. We're going to go now to London, where David Barr of the Center for Strategic Studies is standing by. And Mr. Barr, there are several things about this attack on Israel that we wanted to ask you about. One is the fact that these Scud missiles from mobile launchers apparently managed to get through. Is there no defense system similar to that Patriot system that knocked one of these things down in Saudi Arabia?
Israel, in fact, has 2 Patriot launchers, but they were only recently delivered and unable to stop the missiles that were fired last night. Israel's vulnerability to tactical ballistic missiles was one that was identified several years ago, and the Israelis have been working on a new system called the Arrow, designed specifically to shoot down tactical ballistic missiles. The project has been ongoing. The first missile was test-fired at the beginning of this year, and funding has been given to the project through the Star Wars project, Star Wars SDI initiative. Unfortunately, the system is not expected to be operational for several years, not until the mid-1990s.
What is your opinion, sir, as to the matter that the Israeli cabinet is now considering as to retaliation or what form it might take?
The Israelis face quite a difficult choice. Their only defense against such strikes is retaliation in order to deter any future strikes. However, of course, if they do retaliate at the moment, it may be politically counterproductive in that it will obviously stress the alliance, particularly the Arab members of the alliance. Militarily, it might not be all that effective either, because they will only be duplicating things that the Allied airstrikes could take care of anyway.
This is Susan Spencer. We've been discussing the difficulty of anybody retaliating, of getting to these mobile missiles. One person described this as an ocean and the missiles as submarines. And how do you do this? Would the Israelis be any better able to go after those missiles than we are?
I don't think the Israelis will be any better equipped in terms of their aircraft. They're more or less similar to those operated by the US, the difference is only being in the electronics. What they may have is more detailed intelligence information, but that again is something that cannot be confirmed. I don't personally think that they would be in any better position to take out those missile sites.
Mr. Barr, does the Scud missile give away its location, launch location, when it fires?
The Scud missile is a very old missile. It is liquid-fueled and leaves behind it quite a plume. This can be identified from satellite or by AWACS surveillance aircraft, and once launched should be able to be tracked.
So it could be that as these things are used, that this helps, at least it helps the United States to locate them, and maybe the United States can take care of the retaliation in the sense that they can take out the launcher the mobile launcher that sent the missile to Israel.
As I understand it, as soon as the missiles were fired, efforts were made to locate them and missions mounted to try and knock them out. The problem comes in that the missile launchers are mobile and can be driven away and hidden until the next dark night, when the missiles can then be fueled up and fired again.
From a different location, presumably.
Exactly. It's a question of getting to them before they can move away.
Thank you, David. David Barr from the Center for Strategic Studies in London, speaking with us from there.
Charlie, here are the headlines. At this point, just to update you, 2 more U.S. jets are down in Persian Gulf fighting. The Israeli cabinet meets to discuss action against Iraq. Moscow denounces Iraqi's Scud attack on Israel, and Jordan reopens its border to take in refugees from Iraq. Word this morning of more U.S. losses in the Persian Gulf. An Air Force F-15E jet is down. No word on the fate of its 2-man crew. And a Navy A-6 intruder is also missing. Again, no official word on its 2 crewmen. This brings to 4 the number of U.S. aircraft believed down so far in the Persian Gulf conflict, with 1 confirmed U.S. casualty. Navy Lieutenant Commander Michael Spiker. Michael Spiker is 33 years old. In Tel Aviv, they are cleaning up the damage this morning after 5 Iraqi Scud missiles hit that city last night. A total of 8 Scuds hit Israel civilian targets this morning. The Israeli cabinet is pondering now what to do in response, and the U.S. Tomahawk cruise missile continues to be fired against Iraqi targets. These pictures just in. A nighttime launch from the battleship USS Wisconsin. Allied pilots returning from their missions over Iraq say they are amazed about how little resistance they have encountered. Some even say they saw Iraqi fighter jets take off and then hightail it north as if to avoid combat. Here's how some Americans and British pilots were talking after they returned to base yesterday. We'll have that for you in a bit, and when our CBS News coverage of the Gulf crisis continues.
Tell Nuprin where it hurts.
It hurts behind my eyes. Right here.
Nuprin works at the site of pain, right at the spot. It helps stop the chemical reaction that triggers pain.
Headache? What headache?
Tell Nuprin where it hurts.
I overdid it. Pain's right in the small of my back.
Nuprin works at the site of pain. It has ibuprofen. It actually works right at the spot, right where you need it.
Pain's gone. Back feels great.
Tell Nuprin where it hurts.
I like it smooth, I like it slow, taking our time, round and round we go, don't ever change.
Seems as long as there's been slow dancing, there's been slow high.
After all these years, don't ever change, 'cause you know
The best things in life never change.
I like it slow.
Color Tile's bigger, better clearance sale. Ceramics galore for walls and floors from 59 cents each. Great buys. Big savings on DuPont Stainmaster Carpet. Only $12.99 installed. Yes, vinyl style by the sheet, by the tile. 42% off. And introducing window colors, mini blinds in every shade. Buy one, get 2 free at Color Tile, bigger and better.
When life's little irritations are everywhere you turn, more people turn to Visine. When eyes need it most, it's the most trusted name for relief. Visine gets the red out and a whole lot more.
All you needed to feel fresh then was baby powder. And it's all you need now. New Playtex Baby Powder Tampons.
I like gentle scent.
Playtex New Edition Baby Powder Tampons.
It's all you need to feel baby powder fresh.
One of the questions that's being asked again and again, Susan, on as these pilots come back from the raids on Kuwaiti targets and Iraqi targets, is they want to where is the resistance? Where are the defenders? Where is the Iraqi Air Force? Here are some of the things that some of the American and British pilots have been saying after they returned to base.
When we went in there and did exactly what we wanted to do. We had air superiority the entire time. We came up very little. We went in with some very precision bombers. We went in some very heavily defended areas and dropped some excellent bombs.
When he blew up, I could see pieces of the airplane blowing up. Obviously, it was at night. I couldn't see if a parachute or anything like that. It was a huge fireball. I don't anticipate anybody getting out of that.
What did they look like? I mean, the big flames? I mean, help us to paint a word picture.
Oh, bright orange flame and large columns of black smoke. It's a fair-sized fires. I was looking from quite a distance because our job is to go in first to the target area, make sure there's no one there, and then get out of the way of the strike aircraft. So we were a good 15, 20 miles away when the bombs went off. And it was pretty spectacular from back there. So I imagine up close it would have been something.
Frightened of failure, you're frightened of dying. Oh, it's everything. You're flying as low as you dare, high enough to get the weapons off, but you push it as low as you can over the target, just to get away as fast as you can.
We saw some tracer come off the target, didn't we? Yeah. Down the left-hand side, so he was trying to avoid that by going there. And all you could see out on the right-hand side was just a mass of white explosions. No sign of any enemy aircraft at all? No.
Concerning the enemy aircraft, the Iraqi pilots who seem to be running away from a fight, we really don't know why they did that. Whether they were acting out of fear, just simply running away, or whether they were actually deliberately trying to save their aircraft, flying north to land the plane someplace, perhaps they say, he who fights and runs away lives to fight another day. Susan?
Maybe former National Security Advisor David Aaron and correspondent Bob McEwen would have some thoughts on that. Gentlemen?
Susan, before the Gulf War began 36 hours ago, there were some serious questions about some of America's high-tech weapons systems, some of which had never been tested in battle. The question, of course, was how would they perform under battlefield conditions, particularly in the hostile environment, the heat and the sand of the Saudi and Kuwaiti and Iraqi deserts. Well, we've received the answer to at least one of those questions, as you can see in these remarkable photographs taken at the Duran Air Base last night. An Iraqi Scud missile being tracked down and destroyed by a Patriot surface-to-air missile, the M1M104, as it's known. This system is really an anti-missile system which contains a number of components: sophisticated radar, launchers, and the 15-foot-long missiles themselves. There are eight launchers to a system and 4 missiles to a launcher, and each Patriot costs in excess of $200 million. Israel's first Patriot missiles were delivered earlier this year, but when Iraq attacked with Scud missiles last night, they were not up and running. As Susan said, I've been joined by former Deputy National Security Advisor David Aaron. David, you were part of the National Security Council when the system was being developed back in the mid-1970s. Why were they not operative in Israel last night?
Well, I don't think we know the answer for sure, except that it's my understanding that they were not approved by the administration until October, and they really only arrived a few weeks ago. I suppose there'll be some soul-searching both in Tel Aviv and in Washington on that question.
And I suppose there'll also be many anxious moments in Tel Aviv today and tonight as the next group of Scud missiles from Iraq are anticipated. Back to you, Charles and Susan.
And CBS News coverage of Operation Desert Storm continues in just a moment. Bob McEwen is standing by with former National Security Advisor David Aaron. Gentlemen, you were in the midst of discussing why these defenses maybe weren't in place, weren't ready.
David, again, it would seem to be reasonable that if we've known for 5 months that this confrontation might come to the head that it has, the delivery would have been made in time to allow those Patriots to be operative last night when the Scuds came in from Iraq.
Well, one would have thought so. Certainly we were concerned enough to make sure that our Patriots protecting Bahrain were in place and up and running. But there apparently must have been some glitches between Washington and Tel Aviv in getting the Israeli ones in place. It's not a simple question for the Israelis. They have limited defense resources. These are extremely expensive systems. They're designed really for point defense, so they're there to protect particular targets, not to protect a whole country like Israel. So they have some drawbacks from the standpoint of the Israelis, so that may have slowed things down a little bit.
Yeah, we have heard all morning the apprehension in Israel that the attack last night by Iraqi Scuds might have just been the beginning, and that another group, perhaps with chemical warheads, might be expected tonight. How likely do you believe that is?
Well, I think that it's quite clear that there should be more mobile Scud launchers available to attack Israel in the coming evening. The problem that the Air Force faces, both our Air Force and the Israeli Air Force, is to locate these systems and destroy them in a real-time environment. What you really have to do is to be able to conduct some kind of armed reconnaissance, if you will, of the area of Iraq that is close to the Jordanian border. You have to be able to fly over it, find where they're hidden, and then attack the launchers, as well as the places where the missiles might be stored. This is not a simple thing to do, even in the light air defense environment that our flyers have been encountering.
Now, you talk about the mobile launchers, which have been elusive to this point. It is known that there are Scud missile bases in western Iraq. There are U.S. F-111s in Turkey. One would think it would be logical to use those F-111s against those Scud missile bases. Why has that not been done?
Well, it's my understanding that the Turkish government has not given permission to fly out of Turkey until yesterday, and I don't think we've even had any reports as to whether we've taken advantage of whatever permission has been given. At the moment, it's my understanding that those targets are being taken under attack not only from Saudi Arabia, but also from the aircraft carriers that are operating in the Red Sea. We have plenty of assets to go after the area. The problem is in target location. And I'm a little surprised that our overhead reconnaissance, our satellite reconnaissance, has not given us better information.
Well, along with everything else, this past 36 hours has certainly been an exercise in military equipment for many of us. Back to Charles and Susan.
Thank you, gentlemen. Of course, all Americans are reacting very strongly to the events of the last 2 days, perhaps none more so, though, than American veterans. Jerry Bowen has a piece on their response.
The president says it won't be another Vietnam, but on the streets it's starting to look the same. This was the protest today in San Francisco. And these are Vietnam veterans at the VA hospital in nearby Menlo Park. It's starting to look the same to them, too.
Because it brings back all of those old memories of loading on that aircraft and leaving everything that I knew behind me.
Thinking about the possibility of the men that might be coming back, that won't be coming back.
The veterans are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, flashbacks of war, triggered years after their fight was over. The trigger now is the fighting in the Persian Gulf. Hospitals across America are getting calls for help. 41-year-old John Hazlett was admitted only yesterday after suffering a breakdown. His son is with the U.S. Army on the front line near Iraq.
Matter of fact, I tried to dissuade him from going. He wanted to do what his dad had done. Thing is, he's got 7 months to go, and he has a scholarship at the University of Kentucky when he comes back.
When the Persian Gulf fighting is over, it's projected that up to 30% of the Americans exposed to combat may come home as psychiatric casualties. It's not so much a legacy of Vietnam as a legacy of war.
Well, I had a rough night's sleep bouncing from Vietnam to Saudi Arabia to here.
A network of 80 hospitals is preparing to care for the new cases. Menlo Park will supply 30 psychiatric beds. But the immediate concern for the staff is the old warriors. The Persian Gulf has raised agonizing concerns among them.
Now that this is real, that Vietnam veterans aren't going to be able to access treatment because there's going to be this new veteran population, and that they're going to be welcomed home and they're going to be the heroes.
They can be a part of these folks' welcome home, the welcome home that they didn't get.
And the demonstrators not even born when these men went off to Vietnam, have rubbed old wounds raw.
I think it's right or not that we should stand behind the troops and give them our support. This is one of the things that broke the morale of the soldiers in Vietnam.
So again today, they gathered in small groups to talk and chase away the demons.
The driver took an RPG. He was already dead. Then his hand came back and cartwheeled in a circle. I don't know. There's nothing to be afraid of. Just the memories.
Memories being made again tonight by new warriors in a new war. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Menlo Park, California.
That really brings it home, doesn't it? This projection of 30% of the casualties will be psychiatric casualties. I suppose in a way it's good to get prepared for it, but you don't want to hear that.
Well, the Vietnam War is still raging in the minds of these men. And this war, no matter how short it is, we're all hoping that it will be a very short one, will still be going on years from now in the minds of some of the men who are there now. No question about it.
Indeed. And CBS News coverage of Operation Desert Storm continues in a moment.
watching CBS News' continuing coverage of Showdown in the Gulf. From CBS News headquarters in New York, here are Charles Osgood and Susan Spencer.
Here are the latest headlines. 2 more American planes are shot down in the Gulf War. Israel considers a response to an Iraqi missile attack. The Soviets call that attack a dangerous turn, and there is no let-up in the bombing of Iraq. From Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, this morning comes word that 2 more American planes have been downed in the Gulf War. The planes, both with 2-man crews, are an Air Force F-15E, called the Strike Eagle, and a Navy A-6 Intruder. The crewmen are unaccounted for at this hour, 2 men on each plane. The first U.S. plane lost during the first wave of bombing was a Navy F-18. Its pilot, Lieutenant Commander Michael Spicer, is officially listed as missing. Also this morning, Israel's cabinet is trying to decide on a response to Iraq's Scud missile attack on Haifa, Tel Aviv, and some other coastal areas in Israel. At least 8 Scud missiles armed with conventional weapons caused considerable damage and at least 10 injuries, but there were no deaths. The Soviet Union is denouncing the attack, calling it a dangerous turn in the Gulf conflict. Allied air attacks continue this morning against Iraq. Among the most effective weapons, the surface-to-surface Tomahawk cruise missile. This one fired from the battleship Wisconsin in the Persian Gulf.
Tomahawk is an impressive system. It's been postulated to be a very effective strike weapon, to augment our strike capability from aircraft carriers. And I think the combination gives us a very potent force indeed.
In this country, the anti-war protests continue. There was one last night in Missoula, Montana, at a college basketball game. Police had to drag protesters off the court when they disrupted the game.
Charlie, we've been talking all night about terrorism and the danger that it poses and people's concern about this. So every report of anything going on immediately prompts questions as to whether or not this is related. But we do have this information just in from Jakarta, Indonesia. A bomb was found in the grounds of the home of the U.S. ambassador to Indonesia Friday. It was removed by police, detonated. There were no injuries. Nobody was hurt at all. There's been increased security, of course, around all U.S. facilities abroad. And as I say, we don't know whether or not this is related. It just makes your ears perk up whenever you hear anything like that. Bill McLaughlin is standing by in Tel Aviv, where I assume, Bill, the Israeli cabinet is still in the midst of a heated debate over what to do next.
Yes, Susan, they certainly are, and I think the reason why they're still in a heated debate about what to do next was summed up today, just a little while ago, by one of the chief government spokesmen, Avi Posner, who said, "We are prepared for the worst." And what I think he meant by that is that Israel is prepared for another Scud missile strike. The reason it is because those mobile launchers, as far as we know, still exist, and there's no reason to disbelieve some reports that it's possible this next strike could come with chemical warheads. At this point, Saddam Hussein has absolutely nothing to lose, and he has, in fact, everything to gain by dragging Israel into this war. So what's happening right now is that Yitzhak Shamir, Israel's prime minister, has gathered around him Israel's political and military leaders. They're debating this. People like Ariel Sharon and Rafi Eitan, both former officers, both who fought in many of Israel's wars, are hardline right-wingers. They believe the Jewish state must defend itself, must not rely on anyone else, and should always, as a matter of course, as a matter of tradition, strike back. Others, and perhaps Shamir himself, might be arguing, let's give the United States a chance. It's important that we don't pay off Saddam Hussein. It's important that we don't play his game. It's important that we give the United States a chance to get rid of those mobile missile launchers. The problem, of course, is that some of them may be completely hidden and will be pulled out tonight.
You alluded earlier to another concern, that being that Israeli planes trying to attack Iraq might be seen by U.S. forces as Iraqi aircraft and themselves shot down, due, I gather, to a failure to communicate among all these systems. How strong a communication link is there right now between the Israelis and the Americans in terms of what's going on?
Israel is in very close touch with Washington. It's getting all the intelligence. It's getting the satellite photos. It is not getting real-time AWACS yet, as far as I know, but very, very close to it. But Israel is still linked into the Eurocom, the system with American aircraft in Europe. It does not share the same friend or foe signal yet with the planes that are flying in the Central Command under General Schwarzkopf. So in other words, Israeli aircraft electronically and American aircraft electronically could not recognize each other. They would have to identify each other as a foe and try to shoot each other down. And that'll be the case until there is strategic coordination and tactical coordination between the U.S. and Israel, and that coordination, I'm told, still does not exist.
I find that remarkable. Does that surprise you that that with Israel having gone into this, even a few days ago, acknowledging that, in fact, there was a possibility that it would not retaliate on its own, that it would depend on the United States, and yet it has no way to know what it is the United States is doing?
It puts Israel in a very difficult position. It's a position also I don't think that Washington really enjoys very much, but the U.S. has put together a coalition with Arab allies, including Arab states who consider Israel an enemy. And to share the friend or foe signal at this point would be perhaps sending the wrong message, would risk breaking up this coalition. The other thing is the United States desperately wants to keep Israel out of this to avoid Saddam Hussein being able to make this a holy war against Israel, to whip up riots, demonstrations throughout the Arab world, which would just break asunder this American coalition and help win the day for Saddam Hussein. So I think some people around Shamir will be arguing that, will be arguing, look, we've got to tough it out, we've got to be patient, it's in our interest to be patient, but it must be a stormy debate.
Thank you very much. Bill McLaughlin, Tel Aviv. Charlie?
As to what is going on in that area itself right now, let's go to Scott Pelley in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia. Scott, what is the latest you have to report?
Good morning, Charles. From here, the air war appears to be intensifying and American losses are growing. Early this morning, before dawn, the aerial attack continued from the sea. Aboard the U.S. battleship USS Wisconsin in the Persian Gulf, Tomahawk cruise missiles continued to fly from the deck, headed for targets in Kuwait and Iraq. These are the super accurate unmanned missiles that are used to take out air defenses primarily in order to help make the skies more safe for U.S. pilots. Unfortunately, 3 American aircraft as of this morning have been lost. They include an Air Force F-15E Strike Eagle. This is top of the line, state of the art, the best that the Air Force has in terms of a ground attack and fighter aircraft. 2 men on that aircraft are presumed missing. The Pentagon tells us this morning their fate is unknown. From the Navy, an A-6 Intruder is also missing. 2 men aboard that aircraft, their fates unknown. And the first aircraft to have been lost in the U.S. air war against Iraq, a Navy FA-18. The pilot on that aircraft is now listed as missing. Here in Dhahran, we suffered our first air attack, our first confirmed aerial attack early this morning before dawn. An Iraqi-launched Scud missile zeroed in on the base where we are now. Apparently, an American Patriot anti-missile system was successful in knocking that missile down. Charlie?
Thank you, Scott. Scott Pelley refers to the Patriot missile that knocked down the bomb that was sent by Iraq to some target in Saudi Arabia, the same sort of bomb that was used on targets including Tel Aviv and Haifa and other Mediterranean Israeli targets yesterday. We're going now to Tel Aviv and speak with Amatzi Baram, who is of Haifa University and is an expert on Iraq. Sir, why we have been asking ourselves why, since this system has existed, that Israel was not fully equipped with it and able to deal with this missile attack. Have you an explanation for that?
Why we don't have a system to deal with it?
Yes, sir.
Well, because we are dealing here with an anti-missile system which doesn't yet exist anywhere in the world. It's Star Wars, and we are not yet there. We are working on it. We are working on our own Arrow, but it will take probably 3, 4, perhaps even 5 years until it's operational. And the Patriot is not designed for that kind of thing. You can defend with a Patriot a very limited target like an airfield, but you cannot defend with a Patriot a huge city like the Tel Aviv area.
Mr. Barham, do you think that the reason that the attack last night was with explosives and not with a chemical warhead is because that's just what Saddam Hussein decided to do, or is it because he has no choice? I mean, do you think that they have the capability of delivering chemical weapons with the Scud?
We believe that they do. It's quite primitive as far as we understand. They don't have yet the binary sophisticated nerve gas warheads, but we understand that they have some more primitive mustard gas warheads, so they could have used those. I think it was, well, if I'm right, then the reason was primarily political. In Saddam's own strategic outlook and in that of his generals, if they use against Israel chemical warheads, they will legitimize an Israeli use of nuclear weapons. Now, while I'm not saying that they'll never do this, provided they have those warheads, I think that to do this, Saddam will have to be absolutely desperate. Because as they understand it, regardless of what the Israeli government will decide to do, but as they see it in their own strategic thinking, if they send a few of these missiles on Tel Aviv, we send an atomic warhead on Tikrit, Saddam Hussein's hometown and power base, and on the Sunni Arab areas of Baghdad, where Saddam's power base in Baghdad is living. And we have, as they know, they are saying it in their own strategic writings, which appear in their own newspapers, we have very, very accurate missiles and something like 150 atomic nuclear warheads, which they say can reach every and any Arab capital.
Professor, thank you very much. We have a little time problem here, but that certainly is a sobering thought that you give us, and I hope it is a sobering thought for Saddam Hussein as well. Thank you, sir.
CBS News coverage of Operation Desert Storm continues in just a moment.
This is not what you want in a shave. Now you've got the edge. This is the shave with 6 rich lubricants. This is the shave that reduces irritation. This is the shave. For less irritation, you've got the edge.
From Walt Disney Pictures, on the Alaskan frontier, where nature is man's greatest challenge. A boy rescues a baby wolf.
What chance would a wolf cub have of surviving on his own out here?
None. And as they grow, they form an extraordinary friendship.
You're gonna be okay.
Walt Disney Pictures presents a classic adventure. Jack London's White Fang, rated PG. Now playing at a theater near you.
Years ago, when this was my piano, your mom helped me dust it with Pledge.
Now that it's ours, I use Touchable Pledge.
With Pledge, smears just disappear.
I taught someone that
Same song.
Also in a trigger spray bottle.
Clarence, now in wintergreen flavor too.
Tell Nuprin where it hurts.
It hurts behind my eyes. Right here.
Nuprin works at the site of pain, right at the spot. It helps stop the chemical reaction that triggers pain.
Headache? What headache?
Tell Nuprin where it hurts.
I overdid it. Pain's right in the small of my back.
Nuprin works at the site of pain. It has ibuprofen. It actually works right at the spot, right where you need it.
Pain's gone. Back feels great.
Tell Nuprin where it hurts.
Here are the early morning headlines in the Persian Gulf conflict. 2 more U.S. fighter planes are reported down. No official word yet available on the fate of their crews. Israel debates a response to an Iraqi missile attack, and the U.S.-led bombing of Iraq and Kuwait continues unabated. Few details are available, but 2 more U.S. jets are reported missing in Operation Desert Storm. One is a Navy A-6 Intruder. There is no word yet on the fate of its 2-man crew. The other is an Air Force F-15 Eagle. No word on its 2 crewmen either. The Israeli cabinet is meeting after an Iraqi missile attack on civilian targets last night. At least 8 conventionally armed Scud missiles hit Haifa and Tel Aviv, causing damage and minor injuries, but remarkably no deaths. And U.S. Tomahawk cruise missiles continue to get a workout. More were launched last night from the battleship Wisconsin. This in addition to more than 100 Tomahawks fired in the very first hours of fighting. All appears quiet, meanwhile, in the Iraqi capital of Baghdad, from pictures available this morning. But the massive U.S.-led airstrikes are said to be continuing on targets around Iraq and in Kuwait. Charlie?
And how are we Americans reacting? What do we think and how do we feel about what has been going on? Our colleague Bob Fall can give us some answers to that. Bob?
Charlie, the bombs may not have leveled Baghdad yet, but apparently they have already started knocking down some people who had been sitting on the fence at home. The same Americans who just 1 week ago were evenly divided over the war now support military action, and they do so overwhelmingly. More than 3 out of 4 surveyed in the most recent CBS News New York Times poll, 78%, said they think that military action is the right way. In the first part of January, only 47% felt that way. As support for the war has climbed, so has support for the president. 85% now say they approve of the way he's handled the Gulf crisis. In early January, only 57% did. That translates into support for the way President Bush is doing his job overall. In early January, the figure had slipped to 64%. Now it has soared all the way to 85%. How long will the military conflict go on? Americans on this point seem to be optimistic. Only 36% think that it will go on for many months. Earlier, that figure was much higher. And the question also comes up of what it will mean to Americans personally. The poll says that many don't think it will come back to haunt this country. Only 30% said they expected terrorist attacks in the U.S. That's up only slightly from 24% earlier in the month. There should be a historical caveat here, if you will. The tendency to rally around the president is what generally happens after U.S. troops are engaged. It happened in Grenada, it happened in Panama, it happened after the shooting down of the Libyan jets. It also tends to happen after foreign policy crises as well. After the American hostages were seized in Iran in 1979, even Jimmy Carter's popularity went up. The question, of course, is how long will the numbers stay as high as they are now? 2 years after the Korean conflict started, the approval ratings, which had been about 70%, plunged almost 40%, and of course the same thing happened in Vietnam. They slipped even farther, faster.
So we are prepared for something short, in short.
At this point.
Thank you very much. Barry Peterson is standing by in London, where, Barry, I gather the reaction is not that dissimilar to that here.
Well, not really, Susan. In fact, I think there's a lot of support in this country at the moment for what is going on in the Persian Gulf. And as Bob points out, maybe that support's a little thin if it becomes a long war, but certainly right now it's very solid. The question everyone here wants to know is the same question the rest of the world is focusing on at this point. What will be Israel's next move? The sky over Israel this morning was crowded with jets, the heightened military activity sending tremors throughout the Middle East. Jordan has put its military on the highest state of alert since the 1967 war and promises to respond if these Israeli jets cross Jordan to strike Iraq. This is the Scud, the missile that struck Israeli neighborhoods. It was designed and built by the Soviets to carry nuclear weapons. One of its main attributes that it is truck-mounted and can be moved around quickly to avoid enemy attack. The Iraqis modified the Scud, giving it longer range during the war with Iran, and thus giving it the capability to strike deep into Israel. The Scud is a lot like other Soviet weapons. It's big and it's sloppy, but in the end, somehow it gets there. One weapons analyst said of the Scud's targeting ability, quote, "It's Neolithic, but not so Neolithic as we've learned to make a point for Saddam Hussein." Susan?
Barry Peterson in London. Thank you. Charlie?
Let's go now to the Pentagon and speak with Jim Stewart. Jim, do you have any information on these new planes reported missing?
Well, Charles, what I can tell you is that the Pentagon can definitely confirm 3 U.S. aircraft. There was some confusion earlier because the Pentagon received a message from Saudi Arabian Command indicating wording to the extent that previously another F-18. And all I can tell you, there was some confusion there about language. They say there was only the one F-18. The pilot of that aircraft, Commander Stryker, who has already been identified, is the only F-18 pilot that they know of that did not return from action. The 2 other aircraft, an F-15E and an A-6, are also now reported missing. Now, there is one thing here that we can note of interest on that. The A-6, just as the missing F-18 from yesterday, both came from the aircraft carrier Saratoga. Now, the Saratoga is operating in the Red Sea. We believe in the northern portion of the Red Sea. Their primary targets were those Scud missile sites, the fixed sites in western Iraq. Those were the first sites struck, and we know that the Saratoga was going back and looking presumably for some of those mobile missile sites. Now, it's strictly presumption at this point to say that may have been the action they were engaged in when they were presumably shot down and certainly are now missing, but that would be one indication that I think we want to check out as the day progresses. But those are the only casualties that are being reported here today. Charles?
Jim, one more time, just so that I get this straight in my head. There's one F-18, one F-15E, and one A-6. Is that correct?
That's correct, Charles.
And
that's a total of 5 crew members. There are 2 crew members aboard an F-15, 2 aboard an A-6, and the F-18 is a fighter with only 1.
Jim, have you any other information for us this morning as far as troop deployment is concerned? Scott Pelley had reported that troops were moving up toward the Kuwaiti border. Can we expect some ground action soon?
Well, there has been a steady movement, Scott is entirely correct, of men and supplies toward that region. And yesterday there were indications that a ground attack would come sooner rather than later, but you get the impression that the air attacks will continue for some time. Exactly how long is unclear, although I certainly think that we'll see a repetition today of what we saw yesterday, and that is hard targets as well as B-52 carpet bombing. Charles?
Thank you, Jim. Jim Stewart reporting from the Pentagon.
Okay, we will be handing the baton here shortly to Harry Smith and Paula Zahn for more details on today's action. I suspect that there will be a lot more coming. I know that the tension in Israel must be very high right now.
Well, of course, we'll be continuing with our continuous coverage, and no matter during the next several days, no matter when it is that you want to find out what's going on, we'll be here to let you know.
I think we can expect that vote in the Israeli cabinet within the next few hours in any case. Operation Desert Shield coverage continues.
Bob McEwen here with former Deputy National Security Advisor David Aaron. Since the crisis in the Gulf began back in August, David, people have said of Saddam Hussein over and over again, doesn't he get the message? Doesn't he know what he is up against? That he must at some point get out of Kuwait? I'll put it to you. After 36 hours under attack, has Saddam Hussein got the message yet?
Well, not according to his own statements. But I think it's important to recognize that there's a kind of a contradiction between our political strategy, which is to get him the message about how much destruction is being rained down on him, and our military strategy, which is designed to cut him off from information. In other words, all of these attacks, or a great number of them, are aimed at command and control, to cut off his ability to know what's happened to his forces, to cut off his choices so that he can't mobilize them, use them, and conduct the war. Well, the more we bomb him, the more destruction we rain down on him, the less he knows about the destruction that we're raining down on him.
What about his own propaganda? Is it possible that he's in such a frame of mind that he may actually believe that? The reports from Baghdad Radio, for example, that 55 Allied planes had been shot down.
Well, I don't think you can minimize his capacity for self-deception. It's been pretty evident all along. I think he has another problem, though, and that is, insofar as these his connections and his communications with his other commanders in the field do exist, it's not a career-enhancing move to call up Saddam Hussein and say, we're getting the tar beat out of us down here. So I think he probably also is getting a lot of misinformation from his own forces.
In other words, if James Baker was concerned that Tariq Aziz, the foreign minister, might not tell Saddam the truth and wanted to send a letter from George Bush along to make sure he did get the message in Geneva, your average commander in the field is not going to break the bad news over the telephone.
Yeah, I think that he has a really very powerful record of shooting the messenger.
What about the reports that we've received, for example, from Kuwait, of Iraqi soldiers going door to door looking for some safe haven, looking to defect, to change sides?
Well, you know, our strategy is designed to cut off Saddam Hussein from his troops and also to start breaking up the cohesiveness of the Iraqi military. And as that happens, as they begin to feel more isolated, as they start getting leaflets dropped on them, which we're now doing, encouraging them to defect, I think we're going to see more and more of this. I saw a report from a Kuwaiti who had earlier on gotten out of Kuwait, who said that in talking to an Iraqi officer, he said, "Aren't you afraid of the Americans coming?" And he said, "Oh no, I'm not afraid. We have a secret weapon." And so he said to the Kuwaiti, to the Iraqi officer, "What secret weapon is that?" And he reached in his pocket and he pulled out a white handkerchief.
All right, as far as Saddam Hussein is concerned, does he have a secret weapon here? I mean, if he is forced to, if he sees the end coming, how much destruction might this man do?
Well, I don't think he's going to be saving something for the Armageddon at the end. I think he's going to use everything he can when he can. And I think his means are limited. He has the missile systems. There are quite a few of them obviously left in his arsenal. I think the Israelis are understandably concerned about further attacks. And I think it's quite obvious that we really have our work cut out for us in finding these mobile launchers and trying to stop them. But they're essentially a political weapon, a terror weapon. They're not going to really destroy Israel in any meaningful sense. And I think that we have to keep this in proportion.
Now, President Bush long since has made the analogy between Saddam and Adolf Hitler. Is there another analogy to be drawn here in the threat to Saddam? Is there someone in his inner circle who at some point might decide that the only way for Iraq is to get rid of him?
Well, that's, I think, one of the great hopes of our policy, is that we will put so much pressure that even if Saddam Hussein himself won't yield, that somebody in his revolutionary movement, in his military, will somehow move against him. I would only point out that the Hitler analogy is an instructive one. Hitler survived the entire war until the very end. There was an effort to go against him, but it failed. And after the war, Hitler's generals said that one of the reasons they had a hard time organizing against him, although there was widespread opposition to him in the German military, was that we had a policy of unconditional surrender. Well, we're very close to that kind of policy for Iraq, and that only makes it more difficult for people to clandestinely organize to move against Saddam Hussein.
You know, we talk about the destruction that has taken place in the past 36 hours. We talk about the declining morale among the troops. We talk about the lack of information. When you add it all up, though, do you see a scenario here where he would unconditionally surrender, or is it going to be destruction for Saddam Hussein?
My guess is that our first objective, of course, is going to be to liberate Kuwait. But I think once Kuwait has been liberated, I'm not certain the fighting will stop. My gut instinct is that there will continue to be fighting, and that Saddam Hussein will continue to press the war, and that we may well be put in a position where we actually have to go to Baghdad to get him.
David Aaron, former Deputy National Security Advisor and member of the National Security Council. And the showdown in the Gulf continues on CBS television. I'm Bob McEwen. We'll be back shortly with Paula Zahn and Harry Smith.
This is CBS. Drug addiction takes many forms, and whatever the form, it can be a subtle killer. It can destroy your health, your family, your career. So if the subtlety of drug addiction or alcohol are becoming the focus of your life, call the Baptist Hospital Drug and Alcohol Recovery Center now. We offer help for today and a plan for life. Call 329-7777.
Starving Artist Group Art Expo and Sale. Thousands of beautiful original oil paintings on canvas by talented professional artists. Giant sofa-sized paintings sold elsewhere for hundreds of dollars as low as $25. Smaller paintings from $7. Absolutely positively no painting over $49. Professional artist quality at rock-bottom starving artist prices. This Sunday only in Nashville at the Marriott Hotel, I-40 at Briley Parkway, and in Murfreesboro at the Holiday Inn. This Sunday only, 11 to 4. Absolutely, positively no painting over $49.
Watching CBS News continuing coverage of Showdown in the Gulf. From CBS News headquarters in New York, here are Harry Smith and Paula Zahn.
And good morning, everybody. I guess it's hard to figure out who's going to be on the shift because we're changing throughout the night. Welcome back to our special coverage of Operation Desert Storm. I'm Paula Zahn.
And I'm Harry Smith, and here are the Persian Gulf headlines this morning. 2 more American planes down. Israel looks for an answer to an Iraqi missile attack. Moscow denounces the attack as a dangerous turn, and Allied ground forces are on the move in Saudi Arabia. There are 2 more American planes down in the Gulf War. One is identified as an Air Force F-15E Strike Eagle carrying 2 crewmen. The other is a Navy attack plane, an A-6 Intruder, also a 2-man aircraft. Both crews are listed as missing. In Israel, the cabinet has ended an emergency session this morning in Jerusalem. They met to